Good evening, boys and girls. Tonight on our video segment, we're going to review how to read graduated cylinders and beakers. And here in front of me, we have our graduated cylinders. We have a 100 milliliter graduated cylinder. We have a 50 milliliter graduated cylinder, 25 milliliter graduated cylinder, and a 10 milliliter graduated cylinder. We're going to use these throughout the year, so you need to be very familiar with how to read them. You will see with the 100 milliliters, we're going to start with this one first, you will see that this is 25, 30, 35, 40, and so on, and counts by fives. The little milliliter lines in between are by one, so this would be 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and so on. So when you read the level of this liquid here, what do you think it's going to be? You're right, it's going to be close to 54 milliliters. And you need to make sure that you look at the meniscus, which is the bottom of the curve that you're going to read. So it kind of curves a little bit, do you see? And you read the bottom. So really, actually, really looking at it, it's between 53 and 54, so 53.5 milliliters. Okay, and we'll ask you to round, but the teacher will tell you later on when we get to that lesson. Here we have our 50 milliliters, and if we see there's 10, 15, 20, 25, and again in between it's at 1. So if we start at 15, there's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So if we read this one, we tilt our head, we look to the side, you see a really nice curve there. What do you think the measurement of this one would be? 30. No, you're wrong. It's 24 milliliters. Let's move to the 25 milliliter graduated cylinder. And now this one, again, it's the same thing. It counts by 5s, 10, 15 with the numbers. But then you'll notice that actually those are single digit marks. So we start at 5 here, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So again, let's look up here. Let's look at the bottom of the meniscus. Can we see that? That's a little tricky one since it's kind of smack in the middle. And we're going to say that is about 21.5 milliliters. And then we have our 10 milliliters, this little baby tiny one. And again, now this one, you can see it counts by 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10. And so these little lines are decimals, and they count by 0.2. So if we have 1, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, 1.8, 2, 2.2, 2.4, 2.6, 2.8, 3, and so on. But let's take a look at how to read this one. This is a pretty easy one to read. We look at the bottom of the meniscus, and yes, you are correct. It is 4 milliliters. So that is how you're going to read the liquids in a graduated cylinder. Now, we are going to move our beakers. We have a massive 1,000 milliliter beaker. And we have a 500 milliliter beaker of, yes, it is yellow water. We have a 300 milliliter beaker. And yes, a 200 milliliter beaker. We're always going to read to the right of the lines here, the measurement lines. Only read to the right. Okay, boys and girls? Not the left, only to the right. So the same thing for a beaker, you're going to read the bottom of the meniscus, you're going to get down. Of course, before you do that, you have to make sure you understand the increments. We have 100, 200, it counts by hundreds. But what's between 100 and 200? Yes, you're right, 50 milliliters. So if we look up here, we got 600 milliliters. Over here, this 500 milliliter beaker, we look down. This one, again, has between 100, 150, 200, and so forth. But yes, 100 milliliters. Now this one is kind of tricky because you notice that you don't have those little milliliter lines like you did in the graduated cylinder. So to have a more exact number, you would use a graduated cylinder. A ballpark, you would use a beaker, but a better way to measure a liquid would be the graduated cylinder because it can be exact. Now if you look at the bottom of the meniscus, you know what it looks like with this one would be 175, so a little bit above maybe 180. But again, you know what? It's tricky because it's not a detailed, you don't have those little milliliter lines. And then we have our last little one, 200 milliliter beaker here. Whoop, I've got to let it settle too. You got to let it settle before you read. And again, you have between 100 and 150, so if you cut that in half, that would be 125 mark, right? And that would be just a little bit above again. And again, like I said before, it's difficult to read exact numbers on a beaker. So to find an exact number, you would want to get your graduated cylinder so you can see the difference. You see? Better to read a liquid on a graduated cylinder than a beaker. All right, and one more to review. Yes, we're going to get out our metric ruler. All right. With our metric ruler, boys and girls, we are only, of course, in science using the metric system. So we're not using any inches. I don't want to hear that. You're going to use meters. You're going to use centimeters and millimeters. So we have our ruler here. When you measure, I'm going to take this wonderful, beautiful textbook that we're actually not going to use anymore because we got new ones. You always want to make sure that you start at that first line. So you can kind of see that the first line is right here. So there's a little bit of wood before that, but you don't want to start measuring at that. You want to start at that first line. So if I take or I'll do it this way. Okay, so that's pretty close. It's kind of hard. And you will see that you're going to use the metric side, so this is millimeters. And of course, this one is centimeter. So you have 30 centimeters in a metric ruler, or a little bit more than 30 centimeters, excuse me. But these little tiny lines are your millimeters that you're going to count. So I'm going to look over here, I'm looking for the width of the textbook, and wow, we have 22 centimeters, but we have more than that, because what we need to do now is we need to count the millimeters. So I'm looking like right there. So you can see between 22 and 23, you would have your 25 22.5 millimeters. So you're counting, you have 22 centimeters, 0.1, 0.2. So 22.2 millimeters would be the width of this textbook. Excuse me, centimeters. Sorry, boys and girls. 22.2 centimeters. All right. And we'll just practice one more time because I clearly need to practice. And I'm going to again measure. This is not how you're going to start measuring. You've got to make sure you have it at the 1 mark, right? At the 0 mark. Excuse me, 0 mark. And again, we're going to look here. We're looking at our 1 centimeter, 2, all the way. We're at 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters. 28 centimeters. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look here, and it looks like it maybe right there where my nail is. That might be the end. Oh, this one right here. 28.2 centimeters. So your length of this book would be 28.2 centimeters. And that is how you're going to measure.